Whether it be my story or my guest stories, we all share parts of the human experience. In our own ways, we have all faced triumph and challenges, both joy and pain, both gratitude and grief. My life changed forever on October 11, 2019, the day I had a stroke. It had a ripple effect, not only for me, but also for those I cherish. Through grace, we are here today to pay it forward. It's my mission to focus on what brings us together and help people find their path through life stories. The inspiration behind Ryan's company, Grief Unleashed, began when he lost both his parents to cancer at a very young age. His mission is to help people, your grief, your way, together. Ryan, thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
I always say everybody has a story, and you, I don't know if it's a sad story, a hopeful story. Tell me your story.
Yeah, I mean, I'm from Los Angeles, Pasadena, California, and born in '76 to my parents, Bill and Virginia, Ginger, we called her, my mom.
You called her Ginger?
Well, they did, yeah. I love that about her, that name, though. It's got a great nickname, right?
Yeah.
So Ginger was her name, and they got married out of love. My dad was an actor in Hollywood, and he was a struggling actor. And then he got married to a woman who came from some privilege, and parents didn't like him.
Oh.
Parents forced him to get divorced when I was 1. So that happened at 1, when I was 1. But I was really proud of him. He actually had some guts and some gusto. He went to Hawaii and started a Kodak 1-hour photo when it was just starting to be cool for travelers. But it failed. And so he came back to LA holding his tail between his legs, and then they got divorced. They tried to have another kid. Baby was born, and it died shortly after birth. So I had a brother, but short-lived. And I was with a single mom for 14 years. And she got remarried to a stockbroker in Los Angeles, aggressive guy, and who just was a drinker. He was, short story, he was an alcoholic and philanderer, and ended up getting divorced when I was 7. And then my mom got cancer, and she started getting tumors all over, and ended up passing away when I was 14 from colon cancer. It ended up being colon cancer. So I was the only child with her, and then my dad was still a part of that 14 years, but he actually died when I was 10. So he developed cancer as well. He was a big smoker, stressful, I bet, in Hollywood. He became a technical director behind the cameras, and really had some great memories with him, enjoying going to see him on the set of certain shows. Like, I remember Knight Rider and Charles in Charge and the A-Team, all those shows he worked on. And I got to go... Mr. T, and got to meet David Hasselhoff, David Hasselhoff. That was fun. And so I had some great memories with him, but we didn't spend much time together. He had a girlfriend, but he died alone with her when I was 10. And then my mom got sick during that time, and she died when I was 14. So my story is that there was a lot of loss early on, and then at 14 I went to go live with my grandparents who were still alive, and that was that kind of that privileged side of my mom's side. But they were not into raising a child, so they sent me to a school. But shortly thereafter, my grandfather developed prostate cancer and died from prostate cancer, and then my grandmother. Sad story. She just kind of gave up. She lost the will to live, and she started drinking more and more and more, about a bottle of vodka a week or half a week, and she died a couple months before my graduation of high school.
Okay, time out. You have a lot of loss.
Yeah, there was quite a few before 18.
Okay, so did you think that was life? Like you get attached or not attached because somebody is going to die?
You know, I didn't mention a few other. There was 2 other deaths in my life, so there was a lot that started teaching me that life is short. So I lost a good friend, Cameron, who had this rare disease when he was 13, and no, he was 9, and he died. Then my uncle died from cancer, who I was really close to. So there was like 7 people there that taught me that, I better love the people that I'm with, or else you may not. And I wasn't very. The truth is, I wasn't very kind to my mom, because until she started getting sick, I wasn't super nice.
You're a kid.
I was a kid. I was a spoiled little kid. But the second that she got sick, it was like, uh-oh, I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. Please, what can I do for you? And that changed my life forever. It was from spoiled to service. It was from, what can I do to make your life better? And so it just became my life was now about maximizing the time I had, and loving the people that I'm with the most,
Okay, I'm amazed that you can get attached.
Oh yeah, that was hard. Getting married was hard.
Yeah.
Sure. Having kids was hard.
Okay, are you afraid?
Of getting married?
No, no offense to your wife.
Yeah.
Like,
was I afraid?
Somebody is gonna die that you love.
Totally. Every day. Every day. It's a. So I try and say things to them that are final. Not necessarily final, but like you wish you would have said that before they died, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like I really appreciated what you did, or you looked great on that thing, or I'm so proud of you, or I love you, or please keep doing that. If I die, don't ever stop doing that. Things like that makes them not regret that they didn't hear it.
Okay, so is your line, if I die?
Sometimes. I do tell them, like, I may not be here for very long. I could have a stroke, I could have a heart attack, I could get hit, I could have cancer, I could, all number of things. So I'm not opposed to any of that, but I'm definitely sensitive to that it's real, So, yeah.
Okay, so 2 things. I want to talk about Judy's house and what you're developing, but you and I are in the same business, right? And you and I deal with emotions. Is it hard for you? Like when somebody says, a prospect says, I'm going to buy a house because my husband's ailing?
No, I love it. Yeah, no,
Do you share your story?
Totally. That's what got me through it, was my good friend Dan Lloyd. He was a Mexican-American friend of mine who I always tended to drift towards white people, because I was like, they seem to be more real to me. Like I just connect with them better. And I've had tons of friends that were just different ethnicities, and his was, he was an athlete, but he was totally ostracized because he looked black, but he wasn't, but he was an athlete, so people liked him, but he'd get pulled over all the time. And so he knew that life isn't fair, and he's in this, Los Angeles community where he's around a bunch of white rich people, and he's like, dude, life is going to kick you in the teeth, but you just got to get back up, man. You just got to get back up. And I never lost that. Coming from him, I was like, he's speaking the truth. He's had a lot of bad things happen to him, so just keep going, get up every time you get knocked down. And so I was able to talk to him about the losses, and I didn't have a counselor to go to. I didn't have a therapist that I was even worth talking to. They were really weird. I did go to a couple therapists, but they're weird. A lot of parents came around me and circled around me and took me in as kind of a adopted kid, and had me over for dinners, or they'd come to college and visit me. But it was the friendships and it was the communication that I was able to get out and talk openly, and I wasn't afraid to do that. And I think if I hadn't done that, it would have been worse. I didn't get into a lot of drugs or thoughts of suicide
That's good.
Yeah. I was into sports, and luckily I realized early that having mentors and having positive people in my life were important.
Who do you remember the most?
Dan, my friend, and then my coaches. my high school lacrosse coach and football coach.
What did they say to you?
They, their voice to me was so loving and so supportive. One was a former special forces guy. The other was just a career coach at a high school that everybody loved. He was like the coach of your dreams. You just love and admire this guy. They kind of put their arm around me as son, and in fact, the coach that I admire so much, he was the guy that walked me out on the middle of the field for that senior final walk with
nice.
the parents.
Yeah.
So he took upon himself to kind of play that role because he knew I wouldn't have anybody to walk me out. So that was good.
So when your grandparents passed away, who did you live with then?
Aunt Joni. She was my mom's sister-in-law for a little bit. My mom had a brother who unfortunately was not, they divorced. But Joni stuck around and had 3 kids. And so she's like, on my mom's last days, my mom asked her, she said, please, after my grandmother dies, we called her Tutu. When she dies, please take care of Ryan. And so I've always gone to her since then. She's still alive. Yeah, she's amazing. Yeah.
What an outlook. She's still alive.
Yeah.
Okay, so go back to the real estate side.
Real estate.
Totally emotional. So when you overhear your buyers or your sellers have that conversation, you relate?
Oh, yeah, I pour into it. I, as much as they're comfortable, I love this. I love communicating about it because it's so healthy.
Yeah.
We rarely get to do this. So it's anytime I get a chance, I know it's going to help. We don't do it enough. So,
okay, so the purpose of this show is to share an experience, right? Do you find that some people say, I don't want to talk about it?
Totally. Yeah, they do, of course. And I don't blame them. I mean, that's what they've been showed and taught. I just try and be a warm ear, and I try and ask questions that are along whatever their comfort level is, And as far as buying a house goes, I do ask the question, where'd you grow up and what was the house looking like? What did it look like? What did you do in the house? What were some great memories? And then try and match that with what they're buying now, because a lot of times that's what they want now, So I do a lot of listening.
Okay, so you came to Denver when?
Oh, for college at Regis University in 95. I got a lacrosse scholarship to play there for a Division II school, and I've never left.
Okay, so tell me, you and I know each other from real estate, but I also know you from Judy's house.
So Judy's house is an amazing organization. I was introduced to it when I was at Sotheby's. They were doing a fundraiser, and Brian Greasy came and spoke, and I was like, "This exists." There's a physical house where they have kids used to be my age up to 18 come that have lost a caregiver or a parent. I gotta go. So I literally left that fundraiser and I just went right to Judy's house. It was like 5:00 at night, and they had
stalker
group. Yeah, there was a bunch of people there on a Wednesday night. They have group and meals and stuff. And so I was like, how can I get involved? And I immediately started volunteering there and did that for 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the house still exists?
Oh yeah, they just got a new one. They just got a bigger one.
Where?
I don't know the exact location, but it's in Denver and or is it Aurora? And it's big. And now they've got more space that they can handle more kids and more people.
So I have to be honest. Yeah. I volunteered once.
Yeah.
And I couldn't deal with the sadness.
Oh yeah. It's overwhelming, right?
Yeah.
All of those quilts and all of the.
I love children, and I love to see children smile, and these poor kids, weren't smiling.
Yeah.
So when people volunteer, is that something that might happen?
If they volunteer at Judy's house?
Yeah.
I think people need to. Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen people go there and be like, "Ooh, this is heavy."
Yeah.
But I was one that loved to run into the fire. I went into emergency medicine after I was out of college because I wanted to be around it. It's a weird thing. It's like a
drug.
Somewhat like a drug. Of course, it raised my dopamine levels. It made me feel euphoric to live life, not to quit. And so I took this path of wanting to be on fire versus, it's over. Because it just didn't affect me that way. But some people, it does. And it makes them feel like it's over. Like I don't want to live anymore.
Yeah.
And so I've come to respect that, but I didn't know that until I went to Judy's house. I didn't see a bunch of all these other grieving survivors and going, oh, that's how she's going to take it. I thought I was special. I never knew anybody else.
Yeah.
So that opened my eyes. And that's
Then fast forward. What are you doing now?
So I realized that there's such an overwhelming need for grief support that, Judy's house is able to help, and they'll tell you, thousands. And I think in 10 years, when I last looked at their numbers, they had helped like 5,000 children come through the program. And I was like, in 10 years, they also tell you that every year, 40,000 kids under the age of 18 will go through a death loss of a caregiver, a primary caregiver, parent, main guardian, and 40,000 a year, and they've helped 5,000 in 10 years. Not bad, but there's so many more that could be reached. And so what I'd love to do is partner with organizations like Judy's House on a bigger scale. And I'd love to just help people get therapy and get grief counseling through the phone, through Zoom, through video conferencing, and through text messaging, teletherapy, and so what I really want to continue to develop is this business called Grief Unleashed. And I call it Grief Unleashed because the whole purpose behind it would be to take the grief to wherever it's taking you, because it's normal to grieve, but it can be destructive if you don't guide it in the right direction. And but it's completely healthy to grieve too. I think it's so foundational to anybody who's done anything significant in this world. They've had some sort of loss that's motivated them, whether it was a parent's lack of love or it was a parent's death, or it was a business loss, or it was a friend's loss. That's how I think we have loss, so that we can either take it and just crumble, or we can take it and be motivated and on fire. And so what I want to do is help people get through that initial phase of grief. Not say this, it's not all the same, but it's definitely that initial phase, which is everybody is just shattered. And then walk people for a long time, for as long as it takes, a long relationship, not a 10-week relationship, not a 1-year relationship, a lifelong relationship, and build a community around those who have grieved like you, like me. So I'd love to see groups that are just like my losses, kids that have lost parents, kids that have lost brothers and sisters, war veterans, parents that have lost spouses. There's so many categories of grief, so it's not one is the same.
So first you have to ask for help.
Yeah, you need to reach out. And so we want to make it easy for a guy like me, let's say a middle-aged guy like me who's like super not going to ask for help, can see this and go, oh, I'm just going to discreetly call, and I'm going to set up an appointment once a month to talk to somebody. Nobody needs to know about it. And it can just be my thing. And I don't have to drive an hour to get to there and then drive back. I can just talk to my favorite grief counselor, which we would then make available many choices that fit the best, and give them an outlet to be able to just release that pressure button, and then start talking about, what are you going to do with this grief? How are you going to process this? How can we use this to unleash something wonderful in your life? What would you like to have happen with the rest of your life?
What would you like to have happen the rest of your life? Yours.
Mine? Oh, I want to see this touch millions of people. As you know, it's one of the hardest things to launch a company,
Yes.
But once it gets momentum, once it gets a fire, once it gets people behind it, community, and it's like, everybody I talk to about this is excited. They're like, get it going, come on. And I'm developing the app ourselves, and it's taken a few years, But we are this close to being ready to beta launch it and now take on members. And we're calling them members because we want them to feel part of a community where they can plug into.
So a community, but am I going to tell somebody else that I'm using this service and maybe we can do it together?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was talking with another realtor, and they have lots, like you said, of clients that have gone through losses, and they open up to them, and they're like, "What should I do? I don't really want to go to a therapist, because I don't like going one-on-one like that. But I think they would do something like this. They would do a phone consult, or they would do a teletherapy version, or they would do just text messaging. Sometimes text messaging, I'm finding, because I partnered with a therapist that I know who's going to be with me on this, and I learned from him, and I learned what do people are actually doing now in therapy, because he's a full-time therapist. So that's going to be my ops manager who knows how to run therapy. I'm not a therapist, but I had the story, I had the experience. And so he says, gosh, it's incredible. People can become so healed just by having a text outlet, and then an occasional call or an occasional video. So we want to give people all those options, and then eventually get together as in person, where they can be a part of the group and go, oh, you're that person. And then the dream is that they would build things together, in their communities, and they would start building other grief support groups within their communities. And then unleash things together, whether they share something creative that they develop, like an art piece or a music piece or a new business, or they started a family they were scared to do, which I was, because I knew I could, lose it. But so I think that's part of getting back up is how do you encourage somebody to get back up and try again after they get knocked off the horse?
And stay up?
And stay up, because you're going to get knocked down again. Yeah, so it's just part of life, but it's the best part of life, Yeah.
I admire that you can live in that world, help that world, right? Because that's a tough subject for me. Is your wife comfortable?
Yeah, she's had her fair share of disappointments. Not a lot of death loss, but it's been a lot of things that she's needed to get back up from. And so we talk about it all the time. She's really behind it. She's like, get this going. Let's get it going. And of course, real estate,
takes away.
Yeah, a lot. You're trying to divide the time to do both. But I think they will work well together, because as I meet clients, I can easily plug them into this, and they can plug their friends in. So I think it's going to be nice.
Your kids take, each kid is individual. Like, what do you think your passion has taught each of your kids?
You'd have to ask them, but we had this thing on Sunday where I actually asked them, how do I make you feel when I'm around you? Because I believe that's more important than what I say to you. So how do I make you feel? And they were like, they said great things and some eye-opening things, but I think that they've seen in me a resilience in real estate. They know, I tell them sometimes, where we are financially, and I go, but I'm just going to keep going and keep showing up, and so they see that, and I hope they see the resilience and that I didn't quit,
So what do you think your kids passed? Like, I never thought my kids would be in real estate.
Yeah.
Sucker. But, will your daughter or son be compassionate? Follow that line of work.
Yeah, that's an interesting, sometimes you have to, experience something to understand fully what that means. I can teach them by words all day long, but until they risk something and lose it, it's hard to say.
Do they volunteer?
Yeah, at some stuff at school, and we've had them do service projects and stuff.
But in your world,
I'd like to get them to volunteer to do stuff around the house more. Yeah, volunteer.
The kids, really,
yeah, not me tell them.
Yeah,
like that was one of the things I did reach out. There's a restaurant here in Denver called Domo, but it doubles as a Japanese martial arts studio for Aikido. And I volunteered, like Karate Kid, to go there and just learn from them. And and I stayed there for months and trained in Aikido, and basically was a paid servant. But one of the things was, if you see something laying around and it's not your responsibility, it's not your doing, just pick it up anyway. And that's just making the world better around you. I try and teach that to the kids, but
they're kids.
Yeah, but the grief part just taught me that I always need to look for mentors. I guess one of the hardest parts is that I didn't have that guy or that dad to teach me one way. I had to learn from a lot of different dads and a lot of different moms and a lot of different people, and I'm open to that teaching. The biggest challenge for an adult like me, though, and I think will face a lot of people in the same situation, is leading once you get to that stage in your life. Like, how do you lead when all you've done is really follow and learn from others? Because I love learning from others, but then it's take it and then go do it. And when you want to get to a big scale, it's a big step for a big boy. And so that's where the training that I have depended on would be circle myself again around really strong leaders, and then do this with them and launch with them and keep that learning going, and don't try and do this on your own.
Okay, so the guy that walked you out on the field?
Yeah, coach.
Do you still keep in touch with him?
Yeah. He retired, but we visited him in Hawaii.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was awesome. He's a coach and a dad to so many kids. He's like one of those guys. But
I feel like you're listening to everybody. You want to help everybody, but who's going to help you? Like each individual, but you want to lead the band? Can you lead the band for everybody?
No. I don't think I'm that leader. I don't know if that's the way right now.
But you are, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I have a family, and then I have a company here and a company there, and so.
And a voice here.
And a voice, yeah. I mean, leadership is an interesting topic, but it's best to do with people, and I just need to remember that. It's so much easier to, like what you have here, support staff, but everyone has a specific specialty.
Correct.
And that's the trick, I think, is not trying to think that I can do therapy, or not thinking I can do all the showings, or I can do all the listings. I've got to create some real specialists in my life. Yeah.
Do you trust people?
Most of the time. Yeah.
When I had my accident, I didn't trust anybody. So when I lost my voice, I instantly had to trust.
You're right, because you
couldn't
help yourself.
I couldn't lead the band, so
Right.
Can you trust?
Right. Well, and I look at a person like you with admiration, because you have always just led the charge. You'd be like that warrior princess that would be like, everybody follow me, we're going through this door. And that's how you led real estate. That's how you led
Thank you.
in crushing it, But I get curious about people like that's history. Where did they learn that from? Who gave them the confidence to do that? Who gave them the power to say, I can do this, get out of my way, or get behind me, or let's go? Because that type of focus and vision is rare.
But you can do it.
Yeah, no, that's what this is all about, is taking something that is a little seed and going, I'm going to make something big of this, and help people step up in their life. And I hope Grief Unleashed does that, and I hope, this video helps somebody, or just our conversations in real estate, talking about that it's normal to grieve and that we all have it. But it's most important that long term, I think, to stay with somebody it's the most important thing, because you can be there for somebody's loss, but then statistically most people that come to the funeral don't call the person who's the main person who lost 6 months after. They're gone, and now they're on their own. So how do you stay in there with somebody so they don't feel alone after 6 months, a year, 2 years, when they lost their husband, or they lost their kids, or they lost multiple people to an accident? So that's really one of the biggest challenges, staying in there with people, relationship-wise.
That's a terrible statistic.
it's true. I mean, you think about it. You go to a funeral, and how often have you seen that? I mean, and maybe you haven't seen it, but it's horrible. You know, everybody comes to a funeral. I love funerals, by the way.
Oh my God.
I know, it's like I love weddings as well.
Okay, I like that too.
Because they're both transformative. I think it inspires some people to get married, you know, in weddings. And a funeral can inspire somebody to get married because they're like, I'm dating, you know, 2 guys and I got to choose one, or I'm dating this one girl and we just haven't committed. And it's just like, let's commit, let's go for it because we may not have tomorrow. So I like that about funerals because it just helps people make decisions. I think some do, you know, if you take it the right way.
Okay, so how can I and anybody who is watching help you?
So we are going to be launching Grief Unleashed. So it'll be griefunleashed.com. But right now on Facebook, we're about to make that public. And so you can check that out and get in touch with us. My phone number right now is something that you can post and just call me. But we are this close to being able to launch and start helping the public. And so
when you publish your phone number, what do you expect to happen?
So we can already take people, and so if there's somebody who's looking for grief support right now, like I said, my business partner, Don, is totally willing and able to start taking on clients. The app part of it, the development of the site is almost finished. So we're wrapping that up. And once that's available, now we can start doing the video and the through the app and but if you know somebody that needs grief support, just get in touch with us and let's get you in touch with somebody like Dawn here who can help and keep it an ongoing relationship, you know, and keep it private if you need to. That's the beautiful thing about this is there's so many communities that are out there like Timbuktu and, you know, rural communities that don't have a therapist locally that's even, well, maybe they do have somebody, but maybe they don't want to go to that person because small towns talk, you know, and it can be a weird political environment. So it'd be nice to be able to reach out to somebody else, you know, outside of there. And so that's the exciting part is that the reach to get to people outside of Denver, outside of your big city, you know, it's going to be great.
Yeah, the reach.
The reach.
To hear that you're not alone.
You're not alone. And to your point, to your mission here, these people have a voice.
Yeah.
And when you give somebody a voice that has a passion to do something with that, look out, you know, and just give them the permission to do it. That's the beautiful thing that I love about this is grief with permission is unstoppable.
That is what I found that people hid. And it takes courage to share your story.
Yeah. Like what you did. And now, I mean, you had lost your voice for a little bit and then you were just like, screw this. I'm going to do something with this. Yeah.
Because I'm a big mouth. That's why.
Yeah. God gave you this amazing ability and you're just like, I'm going to still use it.
But God gave you that ability as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And thank you for being on our show.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Do you have a story to share? I'd love to hear from you. Please visit LoriCorken.com. There you will find more stories like the one you heard today with our series, The Power of a Voice.